"This property belongs to my wife," my son said arrogantly. "But my brother showed the deed. I was standing in my own kitchen when my son Daniel told me I didn't belong there anymore. This property belongs to my wife now, Dad. You need to understand that." He said it so casually, like he was correcting a child who'd gotten confused about whose toy was whose. His wife Jennifer stood beside him, arms crossed, nodding along, not a trace of discomfort on either of their faces. I remember looking down at the counter, at the coffee mug I'd just set down. It still had steam rising from it. I'd made that coffee in this kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made breakfast for Daniel every morning before school for 18 years, the same counter where we'd carved pumpkins together, where he'd done his homework while I cooked dinner after his mother died. "Daniel," I said quietly, "what are you talking about?" "The house, Dad. It's in Jennifer's name. Has been for 2 years. We've been patient, but we need to make some changes. Jennifer wants to renovate. We can't do that with you living here." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet, just confusion. "I don't understand. This is my house. I've lived here for 34 years. Jennifer sighed. Actually sighed, like I was being difficult on purpose. "Mr. Pearson, we've already explained this. When you signed the paperwork 2 years ago, you transferred ownership. You said you wanted to help us. You said you trusted Daniel." I had said that. Daniel had come to me, serious and worried, explaining that he and Jennifer were having trouble qualifying for a mortgage. They wanted to buy a house, start their life together properly, but the banks weren't cooperating. He'd asked if I would help. If I would put up my house as collateral, just temporarily, just to help them get approved. "It's just paperwork, Dad. Nothing will change. You'll still live here. We just need the bank to see we have assets." I'd believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my son. "I thought that was just for the mortgage," I said now, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "You said nothing would change." "Plans change," Daniel said, shrugging. "Look, we appreciate everything you've done, but Jennifer and I are starting a family. We need space. We need to build equity. This house is worth a lot, Dad. We can't just let it sit here while you're retired and not really contributing." Not contributing. I'd raised this boy alone after his mother died. He was 12 when Sarah passed. Breast cancer, aggressive, gone within 8 months of diagnosis. I'd worked double shifts at the plant to keep us afloat. I'd learned to braid hair for his sister's dance recitals. I'd sat through every parent-teacher conference, every baseball game, every college application stress session. When Daniel graduated and couldn't find work right away, I'd let him live here rent-free for 3 years. When he finally got his job as a sales manager, I'd helped him buy his first car. When he'd met Jennifer and wanted to impress her family, I'd loaned him money for a down payment on an engagement ring he couldn't afford. "Daniel, this is my home," I said. "It's Jennifer's home now," he replied. "Legally, we've checked with our lawyer." Their lawyer. They had a lawyer. I looked at Jennifer again. She was younger than Daniel by 6 years, 28 to his 34. She'd always been polite to me, in that distant way people are polite to service workers. Pleasant smiles, brief conversations, but never warm, never like family. "We're not kicking you out," Jennifer said, and somehow that was worse than if she'd been cruel about it. She said it like she was being generous. "We're giving you time to find an apartment, something smaller, more appropriate for someone your age. 2 months. That's more than fair. 2 months to leave the house where I'd married my wife, where I'd brought both my children home from the hospital, where Sarah had died in our bedroom upstairs. "I need to make some calls," I said. Daniel nodded, relieved. "Sure, Dad. That's smart. Start looking at places. There are some nice senior communities around here. Might be good for you to be around people your own age." I was 62, not ancient, not senile, just retired. They left after that, said they had dinner reservation. Jennifer reminded me to start packing up Sarah's things from the attic, said they'd need that space for the nursery eventually. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after they left. The coffee had gone cold. I need to tell you how it got to this point, because it didn't start with cruelty. It started with love. Sarah and I bought this house when we were 28, both of us teachers, barely scraping together the down payment. It was a small 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood. Not fancy, but ours. We painted every room ourselves. Built the deck in the backyard one summer, learning as we went from library books and advice from neighbors. Daniel was born a year later, then Emma 2 years after that. The house filled with noise and life and mess and joy. Sarah had a gift for making any space feel warm. She'd find furniture at estate sales and refinish it. She grew vegetables in the garden. She made this house a home. When she got sick, everything stopped. Not just her life, but ours. Emma was 10, Daniel was 12, old enough to understand what was happening but too young to process it. I watched my wife shrink and fade, watched her lose her hair, her strength, her hope. She died at home, in our bedroom, with me holding her hand. After the funeral, I'd told the kids we'd get through it together, that we'd honor their mother by staying strong, staying close. And we did. For years, we did. I went back to work at the manufacturing plant where I'd worked part-time during college. Better pay than teaching, worse hours, but we needed the money. I took every overtime shift they offered. I learned to cook Sarah's recipes from the cards she'd written out. I showed up to every school event. I made sure Emma and Daniel knew they were loved, even though their mother was gone. Emma grew up and moved to Portland for college. She met a man there, got married, started her own life. We talked every week. She visited when she could, though it was expensive and far, but she was happy. That was what mattered. Daniel stayed closer. He went to community college, then state school, lived at home through most of it. I didn't mind. I liked having him around, liked the company. After Emma left, the house felt too quiet. When Daniel graduated and struggled to find work in his field, I told him not to worry about rent. He was my son. Family helps family. He worked retail for a while, then got into sales. Took him a few years to find his footing, but he got there. When he met Jennifer, I was happy for him. She was pretty, polished, ambitious. She worked in marketing for a tech company, made good money. She seemed to make Daniel happy, more confident. I thought she was good for him. They got engaged after a year. I helped pay for the ring, like I said. Also contributed to the wedding. Not a lot. I was retired by then, living on my pension and Social Security, but enough to make sure Daniel didn't feel embarrassed in front of Jennifer's family. Her parents were wealthy, real estate developer, the kind of people who summered places and had investment portfolios. The wedding was beautiful. Expensive. Jennifer's parents paid for most of it, but I contributed what I could. I walked Daniel down the aisle. No, that's wrong. I didn't walk him. I stood up as his best man since Sarah wasn't there to sit in the front row. Emma came from Portland. It was a good day. Daniel seemed happy. After the wedding, they moved into an apartment across town. Nice place. 2 bedrooms. I thought that was it. The natural progression. They'd build their own life. I'd see them for holidays and birthdays. But Jennifer wasn't happy with the apartment. She wanted a house. Wanted to own, not rent. Wanted to start building wealth, she said. Daniel's sales job paid well, but not well enough for the kind of house Jennifer had in mind. Not in this market. That's when Daniel came to me with the proposition. He sat right here, at this table, earnest and worried. Said he and Jennifer had been trying to get approved for a mortgage but kept getting rejected. They didn't have enough collateral. Jennifer's student loans were too high. His income was too variable. Sales commissions, you know. The banks wanted more security. I thought if we could use your house as collateral, just on paper, it would help us get approved, he said. Nothing would change for you, Dad. You'd still live here, still own it, really. It's just a formality, just something to show the bank we have assets in the family. I hesitated. It felt wrong somehow, but Daniel was persuasive. He reminded me of all the times I'd told him family helps family. He said this was my chance to help him start his life the way Sarah and I had started ours, with a home, with security. It's just paperwork, he said again. Trust me, Dad. I'd never do anything to hurt you. So I signed. He brought the papers, and I signed them. I didn't read them carefully. I should have. But he was my son. Why would he lie to me? For the first year, nothing changed. Daniel and Jennifer bought their house. A nice 4-bedroom in a new development. Jennifer decorated it beautifully, posted pictures on social media. They had us over for dinner a few times. Everything seemed fine. Then Jennifer got pregnant. They were excited. I was excited. The idea of being a grandfather felt like a new chapter, something to look forward to. But Jennifer miscarried at 14 weeks. It was devastating for them, for all of us. I tried to be supportive, offered to come stay with them, help out, but Jennifer didn't want that. She wanted space. I understood. After that, things changed. Daniel started calling less. When I'd reach out, he'd be brief, busy with work. Jennifer wasn't feeling well. They'd come by when they could. The visits became less frequent, once a month, then every few months. When they did come by, Jennifer seemed different, colder. She'd walk through the house like she was inspecting it. She'd comment on things that needed updating. The kitchen cabinets were outdated. The bathroom tile was ugly. The carpet was worn. You really should renovate, she'd say. This place has good bones, but it needs work. I'd laugh it off. Tell her I liked it the way it was, that Sarah and I had chosen everything together, that changing it felt like erasing her. Jennifer would smile tightly and change the subject. Daniel started bringing up money, asking how my pension was holding up. Whether I'd thought about downsizing. Retirement communities were nice, he'd say. Less maintenance, more social opportunities. Wouldn't I be happier somewhere designed for seniors? I told him I was happy here. He'd nod, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. Then came the comments about being a burden. Not directly, never directly, but implications. Jennifer would mention how much their mortgage was, how expensive childcare would be when they had kids, how they were trying to save, trying to build a future, but everything was so expensive. Daniel would sigh and say, "We'll figure it out. We always do." And Jennifer would look at me. Just look at me, like I was the reason they were struggling. I started to feel uncomfortable in my own home when they visited. Started to feel like I needed to justify my existence, my presence. One time, about 6 months before that conversation in the kitchen, Jennifer asked me directly how much longer I planned to live here. I mean, you're getting older, she said. What if something happens? What if you fall and can't get help? Wouldn't it be safer to be somewhere with staff, with medical support? I was 62, healthy, active. I went for walks every day. I volunteered at the library. I helped coach Little League on weekends. I'm fine, I told her. For now, she said. Daniel didn't disagree with her. That's when I started to realize something was wrong. That maybe the paperwork I'd signed wasn't what Daniel had told me it was. But I didn't want to believe it. Didn't want to think my son would lie to me. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I was just feeling sensitive. That Jennifer was concerned. Not cruel. But then they started showing up with contractors. Not asking, just bringing them, measuring rooms, talking about knocking down walls, discussing timelines. What is this? I asked Daniel. Just getting some estimates, he said, for when we renovate. When you renovate. This is my house, Daniel. He looked at me with something like pity. Dad, we've talked about this. The house is in Jennifer's name. We're going to update it. You don't have to worry about it. I don't want it updated. It's not really your choice. That's when I knew. That's when I understood that I'd been deceived. That the paperwork I'd signed hadn't been collateral for their mortgage. It had been a transfer of ownership. That I'd given away my home because I'd trusted my son. I didn't confront them. Not then. I was too shocked. Too hurt. I went upstairs to my bedroom, to Sarah's and my bedroom, and I sat on the edge of the bed where she'd died, and I thought about what she'd say if she were here. She'd tell me to fight, to protect what we'd built. She'd be furious, heartbroken, but I didn't know how to fight, didn't know what to do. So I did nothing. I waited. I hoped Daniel would come to his senses, would remember who I was, what I'd done for him. He didn't. Instead, 3 months later, they showed up and told me I had 2 months to leave. I just sat there, trying to understand how my life had arrived at this moment. I thought about calling Emma, but what would I say? Your brother is kicking me out of my house? It felt humiliating, like admitting I'd failed somehow, like I'd been stupid enough to let this happen. I didn't sleep that night. I walked through the house, room by room, in the dark. Every corner held a memory. The living room where we'd opened Christmas presents, the hallway where we'd marked the kids' heights on the doorframe, the backyard where Sarah had planted her garden. How do you pack up a life? How do you condense 34 years into boxes? The next morning, I called my brother, Michael. Michael was older than me by 4 years, a lawyer, though he'd retired a few years back. We'd never been particularly close. Different personalities, different lives. But he was family. He was the only person I could think to call. Charlie, he said when he answered, sounding surprised. Everything okay? I told him everything, the whole story. The paperwork I'd signed, Daniel's promises, the conversation in the kitchen. My voice cracked somewhere in the middle, and I had to stop, compose myself. Michael was quiet for a long time after I finished. Did you keep copies of what you signed? He finally asked. No. Daniel said he'd handle everything, said I didn't need to worry about it. Charlie, you gave your house away. You understand that, right? If the deed is in Jennifer's name, you don't own it anymore. But he said it was just collateral. He said, what he said doesn't matter. What matters is what you signed. Do you have any proof that he misrepresented the documents? Any written communication where he explained what you were signing? I thought about it. No, it was all verbal. He came here. We talked. I signed. Michael sighed. Then legally you don't have much recourse. If you willingly transferred the property and there's no proof of fraud or coercion, the deed stands. I felt something break inside me. So that's it? I just lose my home? I didn't say that. I said you don't have much legal recourse. But let me look into this. Give me a few days. Don't sign anything else. Don't agree to anything. And Charlie? Yeah? I'm sorry. I'm sorry this happened. After I hung up, I realized I was crying, not sobbing, just tears running down my face. I couldn't remember the last time I'd cried. Maybe at Sarah's funeral. Maybe not even then. I'd had to be strong for the kids. But there was no one here now to be strong for. Just me, alone in a house that apparently wasn't mine anymore. Daniel called once, brief and businesslike, asking if I'd started looking at apartments. I told him I was working on it. He said good, that Jennifer was getting anxious to start the renovations. She'd hired a designer. They had plans. I didn't tell him I'd called Michael. Didn't tell him anything. I just said okay and hung up. Emma called that same day, just to chat. She did that every Sunday. I almost told her what was happening, but I couldn't. Couldn't bear to hear her reaction. Couldn't stand to put that burden on her. She had her own life, her own problems. She didn't need to know her brother was throwing me out. Instead, I told her everything was fine. Work at the library was good. Weather was nice. She told me about her job, her husband, their plans to visit in a few months. I can't wait to see the house again, she said. I miss it. Miss you. I told her I missed her too, and got off the phone before my voice could betray me. Michael called back on the 4th day. I need you to come to my office. he said. Bring any paperwork you have, bank statements, correspondence with Daniel, anything related to the house. I gathered what I could, mortgage documents from years ago, long since paid off, property tax records, some old letters from the county assessor. I didn't have much. Michael's office was downtown, in a building I'd driven past 1,000 times but never entered. His secretary showed me to a conference room where Michael was waiting with another man I didn't recognize. Charlie, this is Robert Kim. He's a real estate attorney. I asked him to take a look at your situation. Robert was younger than both of us, maybe mid-40s, wearing an expensive suit. He shook my hand with a firm, professional grip. Mr. Pearson, your brother explained the basics, but I need to hear it from you. Everything you remember about the day you signed the documents. I told him. Daniel coming over, concerned about the mortgage, the explanation about needing collateral, the assurances that nothing would change, signing the papers at my kitchen table. Did you have a lawyer review the documents? Robert asked. No. Did Daniel suggest you have one? No. He said it was simple, just a formality. Robert exchanged a look with Michael. Mr. Pearson, do you know what a warranty deed is? No. It's a document that transfers full ownership of a property from one party to another. Based on the county record, you signed a warranty deed transferring your property to Jennifer Pearson 2 years ago. It was notarized and filed. It's legal and binding. But I didn't know that's what I was signing. He told me it was collateral. That may be true, but proving it is difficult. Fraud requires demonstrating that the other party intentionally deceived you and that you relied on that deception to your detriment. Without documentation, emails, texts, recordings, it's your word against his. I felt my stomach drop. So there's nothing I can do. I didn't say that. Robert pulled out a folder and opened it. Your brother asked me to do a comprehensive title search on the property. I also looked into Daniel and Jennifer's financial records. What's publicly available at least. He slid a document across the table. I looked at it but couldn't make sense of the legal language. Here's what I found, Robert continued. The property was transferred to Jennifer, yes. But there's something interesting. 3 months after the transfer, Jennifer took out a home equity line of credit against the property. A significant one, $400,000. I stared at him. What? Your house was fully paid off when you transferred it. It was worth approximately $600,000 at the time. Jennifer borrowed against that equity. That's likely how they bought their current house. They used your property as collateral for their down payment. Michael leaned forward. They never intended to use it to help with a mortgage application, Charlie. They used it to fund their own home purchase. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what they were saying. But there's more, Robert said. The equity line has a balloon payment due in 6 months. They owe $380,000. And based on their current financial situation, Daniel's income, Jennifer's income, their existing mortgage, they can't afford to refinance it. The only way they can pay off that balloon payment is to sell your property. That's why they want me out, Michael said quietly. They need to sell. I put my head in my hands. My son had stolen my house to buy his own, and now he was going to sell mine to pay for it. What can I do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Robert and Michael looked at each other again. Legally, not much, Robert admitted. The deed is valid. The equity line is valid. They have the right to sell. But, Michael said, and there was something in his tone that made me look up. You still have some leverage. What leverage? I don't own the house anymore. No, but you're living there. You have tenant rights, even without a formal lease. In this state, they can't just kick you out. They have to formally evict you. That's a legal process that takes time. Months, usually. You want me to fight eviction? Drag my son through court? I want you to buy yourself time, Michael said. Time to figure out what you really want. Time to explore all your options. What options? Robert closed the folder. Mr. Pearson, if they're desperate to sell, and given their financial situation, I believe they are. They're vulnerable. People make mistakes when they're desperate. They take shortcuts, and shortcuts create opportunities. I didn't understand what he meant, but I was too tired to ask, too defeated. Just don't leave, Michael said. Don't let them pressure you into signing anything or agreeing to move out. Stay in your house. Make them go through the legal process. And in the meantime, we'll watch. We'll wait. We'll see what they do. Dad, you haven't updated me on your apartment search. Have you even started looking? I'm working on it, I said. That's what you said last week. Jennifer is getting impatient. We need a firm move-out date. These things take time, Daniel. Time we don't have. Look, I didn't want to do this, but if you're not out voluntarily, we're going to have to start formal proceedings. What does that mean? Eviction, Dad. We'll have to evict you. The word hung in the air between us. My son was threatening to evict me from the home where I'd raised him. If that's what you need to do, I said quietly, then I guess you'll do it. He was silent for a moment. Are you really going to make us do this? Are you really going to be that stubborn? I'm not being stubborn, Daniel. I just need more time. Time for what? To figure things out. He made a frustrated sound. Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you. This is going to get ugly if you don't cooperate. He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there with the phone in my hand. thinking about the little boy who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorm, the teenager who'd cried in my arms when his first girlfriend broke up with him, the young man who'd asked me to be his best man because I was his hero. Where had that person gone, or had he ever really existed? 2 weeks later, I received the eviction notice. Official, legal, delivered by a process server who apologized for being the messenger. I called Michael immediately. "Good," he said, which surprised me. "Good, I'm being evicted. Now they've started a legal process. Now there's a timeline. Now they're on the clock, not you. File a response, contest it, claim tenant rights. Make them prove their case. It'll take months, Charlie. Months during which you stay in that house and they can't do anything about it. Won't that make them angry? Probably. But you need to stop worrying about making them angry and start thinking about protecting yourself." He was right. I filed the response with Robert's help. Claimed I was a tenant, that I'd been living there for decades, that I had rights. Daniel was furious. He showed up at the house unannounced, his face red, veins standing out on his neck. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted. "You're contesting the eviction? You're claiming tenant rights? This is bullshit, Dad." I stood in my doorway, blocking his entrance. "I have a right to due process. You have a right to nothing. This is Jennifer's house. You're squatting. That's for a judge to decide. I can't believe you're doing this. After everything I've done for you, everything we've sacrificed." That word, sacrificed, it broke something in me. "What have you sacrificed, Daniel? What have you ever sacrificed for me? I took care of you after Mom died. You were a child. I took care of you. I stayed close. I didn't run away to Portland like Emma. You stayed because I let you live here rent-free until you were 27 years old." His face twisted. "And there it is. You're finally going to throw that in my face. I knew it. I knew you were keeping score. I'm not keeping score. I'm just trying to understand when I became your enemy. You became my enemy when you decided to screw up my life out of spite. I'm not trying to screw up your life. I'm trying to save mine." He stepped closer, lowering his voice to something cold and mean. "You already lost, Dad. You signed away your house. It's over. All you're doing now is humiliating yourself and making everyone uncomfortable. Just accept it and move on." Then he left, peeling out of the driveway fast enough to leave rubber on the asphalt. I closed the door and locked it. My hands were shaking. The eviction case crawled through the court system, delayed by motions and counter motions that Robert filed on my behalf. Emma finally found out what was happening. Daniel told her, his version of course. She called me crying. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded. "How could you keep something this big from me? I didn't want to burden you. I'm your daughter. This isn't a burden, it's my family." What the hell is Daniel thinking? I explained everything. The paperwork, the deception, the eviction. Emma was horrified. "He stole from you, Dad. He committed fraud." "It's complicated." "It's not complicated. He's a thief. And Jennifer? God, I never trusted her. Never. She always looked at everything like she was calculating its value." Emma wanted to fly out immediately. Confront Daniel. Do something. I convinced her not to. Told her it wouldn't help. Would only make things worse. She reluctantly agreed, but made me promise to keep her updated. "I'm not letting him get away with this," she said. "I don't care if he's my brother." But what could she do? What could any of us do? I settled into a strange routine, living in my house but not really living, going through motions. Every room felt haunted now, not by Sarah but by the betrayal. I'd sit at the kitchen table and remember Daniel eating breakfast there. I'd look at the yard and remember teaching him to ride a bike there. Every memory was poisoned. Michael stopped by once a week, checking on me, updating me on the case. The eviction hearing kept getting postponed. Robert was doing his job, throwing up every legal roadblock he could. "How long can this go on?" I asked Michael one afternoon. "Months, maybe a year. Courts are slow. And then what? They'll eventually evict me. I'll have to leave anyway." Michael set down his coffee. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll make a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "The kind desperate people make. Just wait, Charlie. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. They're under pressure. They need money. They're going to do something stupid." I didn't believe him. Didn't see how waiting accomplished anything except delaying the inevitable. But I didn't have any better ideas, so I waited. "What about it?" "We've been attempting to reach Jennifer Pearson regarding a missed payment on her home equity line of credit. The contact information we have on file appears to be outdated. Since the property is still listed with your name in some of our older records, I thought I'd try reaching you. Do you have current contact information for Ms. Pearson? She missed a payment?" "Yes, sir. 2, actually. The account is now 60 days delinquent. We're trying to work with her to avoid default, but we need to make contact first." My mind raced. I don't have her current number, but if she's missed payments, what happens? If the account goes 90 days delinquent, we can initiate default proceeding. At 120 days, we can call the full amount due. If she can't pay, we can foreclose. After I hung up, I immediately called Michael. They're not paying the equity line, I told him. The bank called me looking for Jennifer. They're 60 days behind. Michael was quiet for a moment. That changes things. How? If the bank forecloses, the property goes into default. They'll sell it to recover the debt. Daniel and Jennifer lose their collateral. They lose control. But I still lose the house? Maybe not. Charlie, if the property goes to foreclosure, it'll be auctioned. Anyone can bid at a foreclosure auction. Anyone with the means to buy. The implication hung in the air. I don't have $400,000, I said. No, but I might know someone who does. Someone who might be willing to buy it and sell it back to you under better terms. Who? Let me make some calls. Jennifer's lawyer sent a letter demanding that I allow showings of the property. They wanted to sell before the foreclosure proceedings started. Robert responded that I had tenant rights and could refuse entry for showings. Daniel started calling again, pleading now instead of demanding. Dad, please, we need to sell the house. We're in trouble. You don't understand the position we're in. Then maybe you shouldn't have put yourself in that position, I said. This isn't fair. We're going to lose everything. You're going to lose everything? You took my home, Daniel. My home. We were trying to build a future by destroying mine. He hung up. Jennifer tried calling too. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, her voice tight and angry. This is incredibly selfish, Mr. Pearson. You're hurting your own son out of spite. We made a business decision. That's all this was. But you're making it personal. You're being vindictive. I hope you can live with yourself. I deleted the voicemails without listening to them all the way through. Michael came over with news. I found someone willing to buy at auction, he said. An investor I know. He's agreed to purchase the property if it goes to foreclosure, then sell it back to you at cost, plus his expenses. You'd need to get a mortgage, but given your age and the property value, that should be possible. Why would he do that? Professional courtesy. He owes me a favor, and honestly, he thinks it's a good story. Likes the idea of helping someone get justice. I didn't know what to say. It felt too good to be true. What if they pay off the equity line before it forecloses? I asked. They can't. I've seen their financials, Charlie. They're leveraged to the breaking point. They took out that equity line to buy their house. They're carrying 2 mortgages, car payments, credit cards. They're drowning. The only way they survive is if they sell your house. And you're not letting them. For the first time in months, I felt something that might have been hope. First National Bank formally notified Jennifer that her account was in default and demanded immediate payment of the full outstanding balance. She had 30 days to pay, or the property would enter foreclosure proceedings. Daniel showed up at my door the day after the notice arrived. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, desperate. Dad, please, I'm begging you, let us sell the house. We'll split the proceeds with you, 50-50. You can buy a nice condo somewhere. We can all move on. No. Why? Why are you doing this? Because you stole from me, Daniel. You lied to me. You betrayed me. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. You're really going to destroy my life over a mistake? You destroyed mine first. That's not... He stopped, ran his hands through his hair. Jennifer's pregnant. Did you know that? We're having a baby. And we're going to lose everything because you won't forgive me. You're having a baby, I repeated. Yes, we found out 2 weeks ago. We didn't want to tell anyone yet. But, Dad, I'm going to be a father. You're going to be a grandfather. Doesn't that matter to you? It should have. It should have melted something in me. But all I could think was that he'd used the same news, Jennifer's first pregnancy, to justify his cruelty before. Had used the miscarriage as an excuse for distance and coldness. Congratulations, I said. That's it? Congratulations? What do you want me to say? I want you to help us. I want you to be my father. I was your father. I was your father when I raised you alone after your mother died. I was your father when I paid for your education and your car and your wedding. I was your father when I signed over my house because you asked me to trust you, and you repaid me by trying to throw me out. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. What else do you want? I want you to leave. He stared at me, breathing hard. You're going to regret this. When we lose everything, when my child grows up without stability, without a home, you're going to have to live with knowing you could have prevented it. You could have prevented it, I said, by not stealing from me in the first place. He left without another word. Michael's told me about your situation, he said. I'm happy to help. This shouldn't happen to anyone, especially not from their own family. There were a dozen other people at the auction. Some were clearly professional investors, holding folders of documents and talking on phones. Others looked like regular people, maybe hoping for a deal. Daniel and Jennifer were there too, standing on the other side of the room, not looking at me. Jennifer's pregnancy wasn't showing yet. They both looked destroyed. The auctioneer began. Explained the terms. The property at 847 Maple Drive. Outstanding balance of $380,000 plus fee. Minimum bid set at $400,000. David bid immediately. $400,000. Another investor countered. $425. David went to $450. The other investor hesitated, then bid $475. I watched David's face. He seemed calm, not worried. He bid $500,000. The room went quiet. The other investor shook his head and stepped back. Going once, the auctioneer said. Going twice. Sold to bidder number 7 for $500,000. Just like that, it was over. David turned to me and smiled. Congratulations. You're going to get your house back. Across the room, Jennifer was crying. Daniel had his arm around her, his face blank with shock. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. At 62, with a pension and Social Security, I qualified for enough to cover the cost. The payments would be tight, but manageable. I owned my house again, or I would, in 30 years when the mortgage was paid off. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Daniel tried to call a few times. I didn't answer. He sent emails that I deleted without reading. Eventually, he stopped trying. Emma visited that Christmas, flew out from Portland with her husband. We had dinner at the house that was mine again, and she told me she hadn't spoken to Daniel since she'd found out what he'd done. He tried to justify it, she said. Tried to make it sound like a business decision, like you were being unreasonable. I told him he was dead to me. You didn't have to do that, I said. Yes, I did. What he did was unforgivable. Maybe it was. I still didn't know how I felt. Some days I was angry. Some days I was just sad. Sad for the son I thought I had. The relationship I thought we'd built. Sarah would have known what to feel. She always knew. Sometimes I see Daniel's car drive past, slow down like he's thinking about stopping, then speed up and disappear. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Jennifer had the baby. A boy. They named him after Jennifer's father. They're living in a small apartment now. Sold their house at a loss. Daniel took a second job. I'm not happy about their suffering. I'm not glad they're struggling. But I'm not sorry either. I learned something through all of this. That family doesn't mean unconditional forgiveness. That being someone's father doesn't mean being their victim. That sometimes love has to protect itself. Michael still comes by once a week. We have coffee. We don't talk about Daniel much. It's too painful, even now. Emma calls every Sunday. She keeps asking if I'm lonely, if I want to move to Portland, be closer to her. I tell her I'm fine. And I am, mostly. The house feels different now. It's mine, but the memories have changed. I can't sit at the kitchen table without remembering Daniel telling me it belonged to Jennifer. Can't look at the backyard without remembering the little boy I pushed on a swing set that's long gone. But I'm still here. In the house Sarah and I bought together. The house where I raised my children. The house I almost lost. I won it back. Not through violence or revenge or dramatic confrontation. Through patience and paperwork and the slow grinding machinery of the law. Through staying when they wanted me gone. Through refusing to disappear. Sometimes people ask me if I'd do anything differently. If I'd refuse to sign the papers if I could go back. The answer is yes, of course. But I can't go back. All I can do is live with the choices I made and the consequences that followed. I'm 63 now. I have a mortgage that'll take me into my 90s. I have a daughter who loves me and a son who doesn't. I have a house full of ghosts and memories, and one old man who isn't ready to leave them behind yet. Some stories don't end with reconciliation, with healing, with families coming back together. Some stories end with survival, with dignity, with a locked door and a man standing on his own side of it. This is one of those stories, and I'm still here.